Coming up on this edition of the Paw Report, we're talking about snakes and other reptiles. As you can see, I have my friend Lil with me here, and we're going to learn a little bit more about these creatures and what you might need to know if you're thinking about getting one at your house. So stay tuned. That's all coming up next on the Paw Report. Production for the Paw Report is made possible by
Inyart Tire and Auto Center in Charleston and Mattoon. Inyart offers complete auto repair. Inyart Tire and Auto Center cares about our community and thanks you for being a responsible pet owner. More information at inyart.com.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Paw Report. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant, and I'm joined today by Kyle Thompson. I guess he's the snake guy at PetSmart in Mattoon, right?
That's what they call me.
All right, and he has Cass. What kind of snake is Cass?
He is a red-tailed boa constrictor. However, he is a little bit lighter shade than normal.
Okay, is there any reason for that, or is he just?
He's what you would call a call strain albino.
Okay. Interesting. So he's a little bit different.
A little unique.
Well, he's joined us today, and we have some other animals we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But really what we're going to cover today is just snakes, reptiles, kind of exotic pets in general, because we haven't done that yet on the show, so that's why Kyle's here today. So Kyle, first tell us, if I wanted a snake, what do I need to know?
You definitely need to know to do your research. There's a lot of snakes out there on the captive bred market that you're not informed that are going to either sprout up to be in the neighborhood of 20 feet or so. Some are known for having really, really wild temperaments. Definitely helps to know what you're getting into beforehand.
Okay, so recommend maybe looking on the internet, reading some books.
Absolutely, or don't even be afraid to ask people at stores, because anyone worth their salt's going to know what to tell you.
Sure, and maybe ask other snake people or reptile people, whatever the case might be. We hear that a lot with dogs and cats too, ask other dog people.
Exactly, and there's a lot of resources out there. There's herpetological societies in Illinois. There's a herpetology program here actually at Eastern.
Okay, so there are options. So
Lots
you
of
can get
options
to know. So
out
do
there.
your homework first.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so with snakes, you mentioned, some have wild personalities. So are they kind of like pets, like regular cat dog type things and personalities?
You'll notice that they're driven basically by like primal instinct more so than an attachment or reliance on people. But that being said, you also notice that they all do have sort of their same personalities. Lilith, our ball python that we have, is very, very calm and easygoing. We had a red-tailed boa similar to this guy here, except it was from Nicaragua, and he didn't have a very nice personality in that he was pretty apt to strike, hiss. He was pretty wild.
Okay, but some of them are kind of calm and laid back. I mean, obviously, like Cass here, he's pretty okay with whatever's going on. So are they hard to take care of? Is there a lot of maintenance?
It's hard to start up at first. There's a lot you have to do to set up an environment, which is essentially what you're looking to do when you're keeping a reptile, is you're trying to replicate a natural environment for it, and that's heat levels, humidity levels, similar types of substrates, and stuff like that. Once you get your maintenance and your routine up with that, they become easy to take care of. Very, very few and far between on feedings, especially for larger bodied snakes like pythons and boas. You're looking at a good sized meal once every 2 weeks or so.
Really, that's it? Okay, and what do they eat?
Most of them will eat rodents. The good thing is there's a much more humane way out on the market now of feeding rats, mice, and they actually come pre-killed. You can get frozen ones, warm them up, and they'll take them down just like normal.
Okay, and so you said that's every couple of weeks, so really that's obviously not very involved.
Right.
What about maintenance as far as like habitat cleaning and things like that?
Habitat cleaning is going to vary depending on the snake. These guys here are tropical. They prefer to have very, very high humidity levels, high heat temperatures. Without that, they're actually prone to get upper respiratory infections. You'll notice them hiss, cough. Sometimes they'll actually cough up fluids and stuff like that. Mold is a big problem that you'll run into when you're looking at high humidity levels in any kind of enclosure. So as long as you're keeping that clean, you're keeping your meals out of there, you're changing water, you're looking good with them.
And is that something you have to do daily? You kind of monitor that?
I like to spot clean. I like to make sure everything is kind of done well, but it's usually about once every week, 2 weeks you can look at. Snakes just aren't very messy.
That's good to know. So what is it like habitat-wise? What should you be getting for them? I mean, different sizes I assume require different size habitats and so on.
Absolutely. A lot of the smaller bodied snakes, you're looking at the colubrids, a lot of native species, you can actually get away with using an actual aquarium. Larger bodied ones like the boas here, you're looking at like the reticulated Burmese pythons, real big snakes, becomes real inefficient to use glass and acrylic. Your best bet, honestly, is to look up designs for a hand-built wooden enclosure.
Really? Mm-hmm. So wooden enclosures, that's a thing too?
Yep.
Okay, and is there a reason not to use the, like you said, the plexi or whatever else?
Mostly it's going to be expensive and hard to find one that'll fit a snake about that size. Glass also seems to have a harder problem actually keeping humidity and heat levels where you're going to need them for those larger snakes.
Mm-hmm. And again, knowing what heat and humidity levels, does that come with your research?
That'll come with research, absolutely.
Okay. What are good snakes for starters? Maybe those of us that have zero snake experience.
I always suggest corn snakes and ball pythons. Ball pythons seem to have very shy personality, but they're never really prone to strike. Mm-hmm. Same with corn snakes. Adult corn snakes are very, very easygoing.
Okay, and so what is it, a lot of people have fear. I don't personally have a fear of snakes, but many, many people do. Why do you think people are afraid of them?
Lack of education on them, I think. Most snakes you're going to find here, especially in Coles County, are harmless. More people actually subscribe to the myth that every snake in the water is a water moccasin. Anything that rattles its tail is a rattlesnake and it's venomous. And once you start finding out what these species are, you just start to realize that that's just not true. Okay. And most of them pose no more threat to you than anything else that you'd find in your house.
So not every snake out there that we see is big and scary and venomous and will kill you.
Not at all. Not at all.
Seems to be some of the perception, though. I know,
Absolutely.
especially with people that have fear. So
yeah, and you look into it, and there's actually a lot of benefit that comes from having the snakes around. When the farmers around here start plowing fields, you'll have an increase in rodents. You'll have mice, rats coming up to people's houses. A lot of times with that, you're also going to see a lot of species like the black rat snake, your garters coming up there. They're actually taking out the pests that carry all the diseases and whatnot.
Okay, and that doesn't harm them, because some of those scary diseases, that's the chain of events, I suppose. Circle of life.
Absolutely.
So they do serve a purpose in that respect. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so what about domesticated snakes? Do you know any of the history there? Have we domesticated snakes a long time ago, or?
Domesticated may be a bit of an overstatement with them.
They're
Taming
still
them,
wild, I suppose, right?
Right, and at the heart of it, there's not really any way to domesticate a reptile. What we're doing is essentially nullifying their responses of fear of us. And that comes with, as soon as they're hatched, the first thing they're a lot of times going to respond to is a human there overseeing the process of incubation. Usually they're overseeing the whole process of the breeding of these animals too. Generations down the road, they just have no real innate fear of humans.
Okay, so it's just like most other animals, the fear's bred and taken.
You can actually find that pattern in the wild. If you go down south and start finding wild iguanas, most iguanas don't really have any fear of people because they realize if I stick around here long enough and stare at them, they're going to feed me.
They're going to give me something to eat, okay. That makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, and the same kind of principle applies to these captive snakes. We feed Cass here, and he's never had a problem with striking. He's about as chill as you see him here now.
I was going to say he doesn't seem to be a problem. He's pretty quiet. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Cass, maybe anatomy-wise? For snakes, what do they have? I mean, obviously it's scales and things like that. So
right, a lot of cool things happen when you get up into the heavy-bodied snakes. It's hard to see here, but he's actually got spurs on the back of here, which are essentially leftovers of when snakes used to have back legs. Mm-hmm. They've also got two lungs, as opposed to most colubrids and native species will have lost essentially an ill-formed lung. He's kept it, but his other lung is elongated to fit to the shape of his body.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I didn't even know about the two lung thing.
Yeah, they've also got thermal seeking sensors in their lips, and that's what separates a lot of boas from the python species. Is the pythons have it too, but they've developed thermal pits along their lips, and these guys just have the sensors.
Interesting. Okay, so definitely a little different from our cats and dogs and fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so what is it that you like about snakes?
I like the same thing about snakes that I like about reptiles in general, and that's that they're just so much more different than anything else you're going to find out there. Especially with the snakes, as they're 100% streamlined to be the perfect predators of their ecosystem. And part of that I find fascinating, as well as I've got a great deal of respect for it.
Absolutely. They're powerful and they're different, and I think the different is also what brings on that fear a little bit too. Their body shapes are different than anything we're familiar with.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, you look at that and you start to see a lot of people will see the fangs in there and they start thinking that that's obviously going to be a venomous snake. And like I said, it's just not true. You start to look at a lot of the constrictors and they've got excellent personalities.
So is there certain personalities you should match to your personality, or does it matter? You just need to know how to keep them, or?
That's debatable. I like to say that there's always a personality to match yours. Cass being probably a perfect fit for me, because he and I kind of like to just sit here and hang out.
Just chilling.
And we've got another snake, Lilith. She's a ball python, and she's actually my girlfriend Sarah's snake. And Sarah likes to do a lot of photography, likes to do a lot of things, and Lilith will actually sit still and just kind of pay attention to what's going on.
So she fits Sarah perfectly in
Absolutely,
that respect.
yeah. And she's also got a cat, and this snake will get nose to nose with the cat, do nothing to intimidate it, nothing to strike it.
Unbelievable. So they can get along with other animals too, in a way.
Yeah, although I still wouldn't suggest it.
Right. Not for the starters and things like that. You wouldn't want to just let your snake out on the floor.
Right. Once you learn to kind of bond and you know the personality of the snake, you can start to kind of interact with other things with them.
Are they good pets for children? I mean, can you have them around your kids?
Yeah, that also goes along with the education. It definitely helps to let your kid know what they're in for. Maybe not for younger kids, because all reptiles have the possibility to carry salmonella. And with younger kids putting their hands in their mouth and all this and that, it's probably not the best steak for them. But once you get up into like the, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Sure, a
yeah,
little bit
absolutely.
older when they understand and can respect the animal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that's, like you said about education, teach them how to respect the animal and you'll have no problems. So you brought some other animals with you. I know there's a guy in there, I think he sounds angry.
Yeah, we've actually
you want to
brought
talk
in.
about him a little bit? There's a couple of different things going on there.
Yeah, we've got, actually, this is a red-eared slider, and these are turtles that you're going to find all over the U.S.
Turtles, okay.
Yep, and these guys are actually common enough that you can find them all over the world.
Really? So this is something you, maybe in your backyard woods or something, you could go out and find one of these?
Yep.
Okay.
Lake Charleston has a pretty decent population of them. Lake Charleston, Lake Mattoon, Lake Sarah, all the lakes around here. You
Okay.
can find these guys.
And what do they eat? What do they do?
Well, the interesting thing about them is that they're omnivorous.
Okay.
So they're kind of opportunistic feeders. If they can find a fish that they can catch, they'll go for it. In the wild, a lot of times you'll see them chase down the crawfish. They'll eat a lot of those water grasses that you'll find out in the lakes and the ponds.
And why would someone like having a turtle as a pet? What's kind of the advantages there, maybe?
They're actually they're kind of cute.
Well, they are cute.
When they swim, they're really, really busy. They're not much of a pet you want to handle, interact with, hands-on. And I think a large part of a lot of the aquatic species is it's kind of a nice way to take nature and put it in your own home, give you something to kind of observe and take a look at.
And are they simple on the maintenance side too? I mean, are these something that are easy to clean or?
They actually require a lot more work than a lot of people realize, because you're looking at filtration for water for them. You really want to make sure that the water levels are, clean, clear, not full of a lot of junk that could be toxic to them. Definitely want to do a lot of maintenance on them.
Okay, so they're a little maybe more maintenance intensive, so maybe not a great first pet.
And that's exactly right. And that's the sad part is a lot of times these are a lot of people's introduction to reptiles.
And so do you hear from a lot of people that they had a turtle for a while and then maybe they got rid of it, it was a lot of work or?
And a lot of people don't realize that these guys actually need quite a bit of space.
Well, I mean, they're little, so you wouldn't think so, but.
Yep, this one's actually a pretty young one. He's about 4 inches on his shell here.
Okay.
Which ties in, there's actually a law that you can't sell turtle species under 3 inches.
Really? So you can't have little turtles?
Right.
Okay. Is that because just the youngness of them or?
They're highly adaptive.
Okay.
And a lot of people get them about this big and go dump them off in lakes, rivers, and stuff like that just because they don't have the resources at hand, I don't feel, to actually find homes for these things.
Okay. So what would you want to consider before getting a turtle?
You want to definitely have a large habitat for them. you're looking at probably 40 gallons or more with filtration.
Interesting.
And you do want to have land, and you want to have water for them to get in. Land so they can bask, water so they can eat.
Okay, so they have to have kind of both. And you mentioned the water filtration. That's something I hadn't really considered before. I guess it would have to be very clean water.
Yeah, they dirty their water up a lot. They actually put a lot of waste into the water through their feeding
So you'd have
process.
to clean more often, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so is this the kind of thing you would be better off, getting at a pet store from an expert, or can you pick one up out of your backyard?
I wouldn't suggest picking them up out of your backyard. Once they get used to people interacting and kind of providing for them, it's really hard for them to go back to the wild instincts. And a lot of times people pick them up, they bring them in for their kids or just for themselves, feed them, and they get real reliant on people. Then they'll take them back, dump them off into a river.
Okay.
And the thing
And
can't
they
fare
can't
for itself.
do it, right. Is this what you would consider a box turtle? I mean, I know around here we call things box turtles. Is that kind of a box turtle?
Box turtles actually have a hinge on their plastron down here so that
Okay.
they can pull themselves entirely into their shell.
Oh, okay. So he's not a box turtle.
Nope, he's actually just a little pond slider.
Okay. And turtles can bite as well, correct? Mm-hmm. So that's something you'd want to be aware
Yep,
of.
if you look, he's actually got pretty sharp little teeth on the bottom of his beak there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that being a problem. He could get a finger or something.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about their shells? Do you know about their shells? Kind of, is there a structure in there, or is it formed that way?
Actually, the back part of their shell is their spinal cord.
So it's like a backbone right there. You can see it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, it's all attached right into here, and it's attached right in the between here. This is actually the carapace, and this is the plastron on the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, he's got nice colors too. Looking there up close at him.
Yeah, this is actually a captive bred species.
Okay.
A lot of the captive ones will have really nice coloration to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if we were going to get a turtle, and then we decided we didn't want it anymore, what would your recommendations be?
I would definitely look into getting into a look at the rescue situations around here. I know in Coles County I'm one of the few, but there definitely are people out there who are willing to take them.
Right. So you can find homes for them. So you recommend that other than turning them loose?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would just know who you're giving them to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
Research
again,
the person.
research. That's the theme of today's show, is do your research. How did you get interested in snakes and reptiles?
I was really into dinosaurs as a kid, and my dad and his brother were really, really outdoorsy types. They like to hike, they like to go out and just see, Fox Ridge, all sorts of national parks like that. Well, their love for the outdoors kind of got them interested in the wildlife that we can run into around here. And once they started to really know their stuff, they'd introduce it to me. Like, do you know what kind of frog this is? Oh, it's, southern leopard frog. Mm-hmm. And they'd start telling me stuff like that. They picked the right time being into dinosaurs, because these are like, modern dinosaurs.
Sure, I was going to
to a
say, it's
young
kind of the
kid.
closest you can get to a little kid.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. And it wasn't too much longer after they started teaching me that my uncle got an iguana. And he was about a 5-foot iguana, and that was the closest to a dinosaur I'd ever seen. And from then on, that's all I liked.
That's interesting. So you kind of learned by osmosis, by being there and seeing things and kind
You
of
could say that for sure.
experience it firsthand. So what would you say to someone that came in and said, I'm thinking about a snake, but I'm terrified of them? Is there ways to work on that fear?
Just get to be around them. You don't have to touch them necessarily, but even being as close as we are and seeing that there's no real danger at hand. Being around somebody who knows what they're doing and is comfortable with it kind of helps ease the tension of somebody else who's afraid of them.
Okay. And what would you say are like some of the best things that people should know about snakes, just as we're kind of getting towards the closing here?
Honestly, they just make good companions. They're a real great pet for people who don't really want to put forth a lot of effort, or if they don't have time, especially for people who travel. As long as they've got access to water and they're fed on a consistent basis, you're looking at a good pet.
Mm-hmm. Is that something you can board? I mean, you can board cats and dogs. Can you board a snake?
I'm sure there's actually people out there who wouldn't mind pet sitting. But as far as an actual place that'll take that, I've never heard of it.
What is veterinary care like on snakes and other reptiles?
Veterinary care can be kind of scary. The prices on it, especially if you don't have an exotic reptile vet, can be pretty potent.
Do they require normal checkups?
They should, in my opinion, just to make sure that you're not catching anything unnoticed, especially these heavy-bodied snakes. There's a disease called IBD, which affects boas more so than anything else, but it's usually once it sets itself in, it turns fatal.
Really? So that would be something you'd want to monitor then.
Especially if you're attached to them.
Mm-hmm. But it can be costly. But do they need any, like, with cats and dogs, there's grooming. Do they have anything, like any trimmings or?
They pretty much do that all themselves.
Okay, so
the snakes will. They'll shed their skin on a routine basis for you.
I was going to ask about that. Mm-hmm.
It just helps to kind of soak them every so often to help them out through that process.
Okay, and what is the purpose of the shedding?
The shedding actually will take away all the old dirt, anything that they've accumulated on the top layer of their scales, and once they peel that back, they're clean.
Okay, so they do that on their own as well.
As they grow.
Right. And you said the soaking, is that just putting them in water or?
Mm-hmm. Lukewarm water. You don't want to shock them because they are cold-blooded. Mm-hmm. They're pretty much whatever their environment is their static body heat.
Okay. And so do they have to have a certain temperature? I mean, I assume there's lights and things like that need their habitat to stay a certain temperature.
Absolutely. And that'll all depend on the various species of reptile you'll come across. These guys will need probably a really, really high level of heat. You're looking at usually a pretty powerful bulb for that.
Mm-hmm. And you said that most of them aren't prone to striking, as a general rule. But say you got bit by a snake, what should you do?
Definitely treat it with peroxide.
Okay.
Run it under some water, warm water, and peroxide it, and then just keep making sure it's not infected.
Have you been bit before?
I've bit more times than I can count.
And so it's treatable, and like you said, most of them aren't venomous. So
yeah, right.
Do your homework and do some research. Make sure you're not getting into anything too bad there. But, well, Kyle Thompson from PetSmart, we thank you for coming on and introducing us to the world of snakes, reptiles, things that maybe we aren't as familiar with. So thanks again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Betty Hargis from the Dog Training Club of Charleston, here to talk about the basic commands that we use in the advanced puppy and basic classes for obedience. And the first things that we usually do are sit stays and down stays. And those are just simply exercises that are an extension of what they learn in puppy class, which is the sit and the down. And then we just extend that. So if you need to have your dog stay in a position while you're going through the door or getting out of the car, doing something where you need, for instance, to have your hands free, you start teaching the stay. This is Micah. He's my little Australian Shepherd mix who is 8 months, almost 9 months old. I've had him since a baby. I got him from a local rescue group, and he's come along quite nicely. The fact that he is a herding breed helps because he's willing to please and work with us. So, show you the sits first. Sit. Yes. The yes is your word for the dog that says, oh, you did that correctly. I like that. And then the treat comes forward. So, sit. Yes. Gradually work the treat out of it or randomize it so they don't become accustomed to it being all the time. That's nice down. I hadn't asked for that yet. Micah, sit. Okay. There you go. Yes. This is the down. Down. Wait. Yes. Micah. Yeah. Our form of training is positive reinforcement based, which means they get some kind of a reward for doing the behavior that you're wanting. And in this case, it's food, you can use a toy, your voice, and you can mix it up. You can have all three. So for the stay, the verbal is combined with a hand signal. Micah, stay. You step off on the foot that's away from the dog. Yes. Good. Yes. Returning, stay. And I'm repeating the command there so that he knows I expect him to stay in that position until I get back. Wait. Yes. And I gave him the reward because he did as I asked. So we'll do the down. Stay. Down. Yes. It's the same thing. Stay. big things with training. Dogs learn our body language, stay, and they're very attuned to what we are saying non-verbally. Yes, stay. The non-verbal signals of leaving on this foot when you're doing a stay, this leg that's away from the dog, opposed to when we do heeling, and it's this one. They learn very quickly that those are things that they can take and learn, put in their little memory bank, and know that that's part of the exercise. So, because I expect to go into some form of competition with him, I have expected him to give me some pretty straight sits, although that one is a little crooked. That's called a puppy sit. And since he is a puppy, he still does that.
Production for the Paw Report is made possible by
Inyart Tire and Auto Center in Charleston and Mattoon. Inyart offers complete auto repair. Inyart Tire and Auto Center cares about our community and thanks you for being a responsible pet owner. More information at inyart.com.